Welcome back to Great Lakes Junction, everyone. We've got a project to do today. So we've had some issues with some kids getting in the vehicles out here in the driveway. It's been 2 or 3 times this year already. So we bought ourselves a camera to put up. We've had quite an issue in this house with a Wi-Fi signal. So I decided to go with a PoE camera. So we're gonna have to run some cabling. We've already cabled the house a couple of years back before I started doing videos. So let's unbox what we've got and see. So they give us a template for the screw holes for the camera. And we have a security sticker we can put up. Mounting hardware. They give you one very short little cable. So this is what we've gone with for our choice for a camera. So it looks like we're going to mount this in that sort of a fashion. There is a lock nut on here, so you can swivel it around this way and the camera will move this way. And then I assume that lock nut, yeah, once it's tightened up, it keeps everything from moving around. So this is the one that we're going to want to use. So we will run a Cat6 cable for this and we'll plug it into that. The camera will get its power through that Cat6 cable. Okay, other pieces that we've got in here to go along with this setup. This is our PoE switch. User manual for that. Very simple, just for your power cord in the back. There's some screw holes and some brackets in here if you wanted. I guess you could screw the brackets on to mount it into something. So that's it. We've gone with a 10-port PoE switch. The smaller one you could buy was 4 or 5 ports, and this one was only like $12 more than that one. So to have the extra space, I spent another 12 bucks, bought this one. If this works out good and we decide we want to put some more cameras up on the house in other areas, we have the room already to expand the system and just plug more into this. Now we had, as I said, we had wired the house before, so now we can plug all of those wires in. All the jacks in the house will be plugged in all of the time. So we bought this fella here with 24 ports on it. You just plug the cables into it, plug it into the wall, and put one from your router into this, and that's it. They've all got internet. So looking back at the camera, there's these 3 wires, and I didn't know what all 3 were going to be for. So our Cat6 cable we know is going to go into that one. The center one, according to this little booklet, is a reset button. So I'm not sure what that's for, why you would have to use a reset button on the camera, but that's what that is. I suppose if you weren't running a Cat6 cable to give you the power, this is an optional power that you could plug in like a small adapter kind of a thing to power up the camera through that. this little bag of parts, if these wires are going to be exposed outside, these are waterproof caps for some of these connections. So there's our camera RLC-510A Real Link. So that's the camera we chose to go with. Our smart PoE switch. There is no actual model number to it. That's it. And then our 24-port switch is what they call an easy smart switch. So it's quite a job to get cabling to where we want it. This is what they call a back split, this house, so there's 4 levels to it. I think that's part of the reason why we have Wi-Fi issues. So we're basically going from the top level to the bottom level. The plan here is starting at this point in the garage. There's an attic access point here. So I'm going to pull the cable up here, run across this attic to the next level up of the house. Now the lighting's not going to be as good up here. I have a light that's just something clamped to a piece of wood that I can move around. So you can't see from here, but directly ahead of the camera out in the corner is where we intend on ending this cable off. But there's a reason why I'm not starting over there now. It is getting warm up here already. It's about 80 degrees Fahrenheit outside today, or 25 Celsius, something like that. And I brought my thermometer up here. So Celsius up here right now. So these roof rafters are 44 Celsius, 108 Fahrenheit. And we're not quite at the hottest part of the day yet, so hopefully this doesn't take us too long. So if I come back around, we're over top of the part of the house now. Okay, so I just had an old piece of plastic conduit pipe. I taped my wire to the end of it, poked it through that hole. That goes into the next higher level of attic space above the back of the house. Hopefully I can find the other end of that conduit pipe with my cable on it and finish pulling it through that side over there. Okay, it's much darker over here. I don't have a portable light rigged up on this side. I'll try and get this. So there's that gray conduit pipe. I don't know if you can see that laying back there. So that was the one. So somewheres I got to find the end of that. My wire will be taped onto it. It's much tighter over on this half to crawl around in, and you have to crawl over here. So I've got some scrap bits of plywood from previously that are just laying across the rafters. So I'll shimmy my way across there. I'll find that wire. And then I've got some more plywood from before up here. And there you can see some cat cables from the previous wiring. I'll follow those to where they disappear. And that should put me where my drop is that goes down through the closet. This is a bedroom that's below us, so it'll be the closet in the bedroom that all those cables run down one corner. So I'm not going to try and film this because of the lighting level up here, but that... So we have this is the end of the cable that we're going to end up plugging into the camera. We've got it through the attic, down through all of the other spaces that I had. So to put these ends on, if you've never done these before, there are a few tools you need. You're obviously going to need a special crimping tool. That's for the computer end that goes on here, so it properly crimps everything. So that is a special crimping tool for doing Cat 6 cable. A utility knife. This is a wire stripper for doing computer cable. It's got a number of different blades and things that can be set and left that way to cut different cables. For the Cat 6 cable, there's a blade adjustment here up and down, and it is set just for this. So the depth of that blade only cuts through the outer sheathing, and it doesn't harm the wires inside of it. So you need that tool, you need the crimping tool. Now these look like needle nose pliers. This is just a cheap set that came from the dollar store, but this is perfect for this. These jaws are fairly wide and they're smooth. There's no teeth or anything in there to mark up your wires, and I'll show you why that's very handy to have. A small pair of side cutters, a tester for when you're done your cable so you can test it so you know if you have any problems. Now this is a punch down tool. You don't need it for putting these ends on. If you were going to, maybe you're putting this camera in a workshop and it's inside and you want a nice clean look, so you want a wall plate that has a jack in it, and you're going to plug your wire into the jack so you can always remove the camera or change the camera and you got a nice clean finish inside. Then you'd have to wire up one of these on the end of a cable. This would snap into the wall plate when you're done. To wire this up, you need a punch down tool to set the wires and cut them off inside of this. Okay, now I've written down, there's two different wiring standards that they use for this sort of stuff. And there's one standard that is favored far more in the industry than the other. So that's the one I've always stuck with. So I wrote down my color code sequence of wires in the order they need to be in. So the first thing we need to do, we'll separate these wires in here. There's a hard plastic core. We need to get rid of that out of our way. I cut it right down as low as you can go to get that out of there. There's a little bit of fine, like an insulation or something, this real fine fiber stuff. We're going to cut that out of our way. Now you're going to start untwisting all of your wire sets that are in here. You'll notice the colors on these wire sets. There's a solid color and then there's a white striped one that's going to be the same color. So for example, the first one we did, there's a solid orange and there's a white and orange stripe. Solid green, green and white stripe. That becomes important later as to what order those colors have to be in when we set these wires up to put the end on. Okay, so we have our wires all untwisted. Now we're going to go to that small kind of needle nose looking pliers that are flat and smooth, and I'm just pinching the wire to get them straightened right out. Might not seem like an important step, but when it comes to the next step of lining these things up and putting them in that end cap, so to speak, if these things are nice and flat and straight, it's going to make it a whole lot easier. Okay, so the end, probably not going to see this on camera. They're clear plastic, and there's this very tiny little piece. And this has to go over top of those 8 wires to go inside that plastic end. And it's actually easier than it looks. So if you were to hold that little plastic piece with that spring clip facing down and work from left to right, our first wire that we want is our orange and white striped wire. So there's our first one. Then we want the solid orange. And we want our green and white stripe. And our solid blue. Just keeping them in order, fairly close together. Okay, now our blue and white stripe. Then our solid green. Then our brown and white stripe, and the last one's our solid brown one. We'll just check our colors that we're in the right order, nothing's moved on us. Okay, we're good. We'll go back to our flat ones here. We'll make sure everything's nice and flat at the end. Now cut these off on an angle. Oh, they're getting dull. Now that little tiny plastic piece, cutting that on an angle is what's going to help you with this. So instead of trying to get all 8 little wires lined up in here at once, you're only starting with one tall one. And they have to be really tight together. And just kind of wiggle it down in there. The wires inside. There, and it goes on. So it will spread these wires out to where they need to be inside that plastic piece. They're slightly offset. So there's 4 that go to the lower side and 4 to the higher side. So if you've got them all right and you're just wiggling that on there, they'll find their pathway where they need to go. Now push that down as far as you can get it. Okay, so we've got that down, I think, now far enough. So what we're looking for, you'll see a small hole inside of this plastic piece. And in there, there's a couple of prongs that are going to get crimped down. You want that area that's going to get crimped onto that blue casing. So if I look at that, it needs to be in there at least that far. And that'll put that little plastic piece, it's on here far enough that it'll be inside of this. If you only had it on, to here, then this isn't going to come down far enough to get back to where you're going to crimp it. So now all of that excess wire that you have, I just leave a little bit, we'll say 3 millimeters of wire, something like that, sticking out of the end. We'll start with that. Cut all that excess wire off. And as I'm putting it in, I'm going to see if the wires are hitting the end too soon. If they're not going to allow my blue sheathing to get up into the crimp area, then I'll take it out and I'll trim them a little bit more. But I think that's going to work just perfect. And that's it, our end is on, everything's crimped together so nothing can be pulled apart. Okay, so now we're going to go to our tester. So this tester is a 2-piece unit. There's different models, different styles. So this end I'm going to take downstairs and plug into the other end of this cable. This end we're going to plug into here. And when we come back up, we're going to hit the test button. It's going to check all 8 wires in this cable. So it's telling us if it's all good or not, meaning our wires are in place on both ends. We've got a good connection. We've got no short circuits, no crossed wires. So we'll go put that in the other end of the cable, come back, hit our test button, see what we have. Everything's good. We got a passing light on it. So all of our connections are the way they're supposed to be. So we're ready to go on to the next step. So because this is the first time I've used a camera, the field of view on this one is an 80-degree angle. I don't want to mount this up on the house, plug it all in and find out that I don't have it in the right spot and it can't be adjusted to get exactly where I want it to be. So I've got this end of the cable here on the bench. We're going to plug it into the camera. Now the next step is we need to go online and download the app for the phone to be able to view what the camera is viewing. When we've got the app set up, I'm going to take the camera just the way it is. I've got enough wire length here to go outside, stand on the step ladder, hold it up where I think it needs to be, and check it on the app on the phone to see if it's giving us the view that we want. Once we're satisfied that we've got the proper location, Then I'll go back up into the attic above the garage, put this Cat 6 cable up there, drill a hole out where I'm going to mount the light for this wire, and we'll plug it in, mount it, and it'll be done. Well, we have the camera in place now. I was able to get all the wiring through the hole that I had made up into the soffit, except I purposely left that one sticking out, and that's the one with the reset button in the end. If the power goes out, or I don't know, something goes wrong with the computer program or something for it, software update, I don't know how frequently I might have to get to that reset button. Hopefully not very often. So we have, from wiring the house before, we have a lot of cabling that comes in down low there. So that's basically the 3 bedrooms up at the back of the house and some from the rec room. They all funnel in through that area. And then from the front of the house, we have a bunch that come in this way and funnel down. So now all of that is plugged into this switch. So our main line's coming in here from our provider to the router. One's coming out of the router into the switch, so that the switch, all those ports have internet. And then another one's coming out of the switch to our PoE adapter that we just bought for that camera. And that's the one that's supplying power into the PoE switch here, and this is our first camera that we have plugged in over here. I hope that if you are having any issues with either Wi-Fi in your house, or you need to put up security cameras, hopefully this helps you out. You can, if you have strong Wi-Fi around your property, Wi-Fi cameras would certainly be a lot easier. Getting the wire out to that very corner where the camera is was very difficult. Thank you very much for watching.